How's it going today, guys? In this video, I'm going to be doing an in-depth review on the Trijicon ACOG TA02 223 red crosshair 4x magnification. I will also be showing you how to install it and why this is still a great and relevant option. If you want to see more videos like this, please like, subscribe, and share to help support the channel. We'll start with the unboxing. It comes in this bigger box with two latches on the front. You'll immediately see your ACOG TA02. It will also have your AA battery inside, which is the Energizer Ultimate Lithium. This is great, and this is what you want to be using anyways, is lithium batteries. And Energizer makes some good ones, so I would be using this regardless if this came in here or not. Lithium just lasts a lot longer than alkaline, and you obviously don't want your batteries dying any sooner than they have to be. So I always recommend that you use lithium. Underneath, you'll have your manual. You'll also have a lens brush, which is nice and beneficial so you can clean out inside that recess. Trijicon sticker, optic booklet, and your warranty card. When you get it on the side, there'll be a sticker with the serial number, your TA02, so your model, and your 4x223 red crosshair. It comes with your Picatinny mount, which this is a solid mount and not really needed to be changed out, with thumb screws, your battery compartment. Your illumination from the battery is LED, and there is also an etched reticle in the glass. You have your two mounting screws for the forward red dot, cap turrets. Your serial number will also be printed back here, and over on the left side you have your illumination dial. This costed $1,090. I bought it off Optic because they give a little bit of a discount, which is nice. I was able to save about $70. I buy a lot of stuff from Optic because they usually have sales. This is the 223 red crosshair. It is 4x magnification. It has an 1.5" eye relief, which is pretty bad, but if you push it back all the way, it makes it a lot easier to use it. The field of view is 36.6 feet at 100 yards. This weighs 14.3 ounces. I like how light this is compared to the Elcan or other LPVOs and mounts, considering that it already does come with a mount weighing that much, and it is powered by AA batteries. For your cap turrets, they just spin off counterclockwise, and for every 2 clicks, it will move 1 inch at 100 meters. This is your elevation, and this is your windage knob. I do also like it that they have them on lanyards to make sure that you're not losing your cap, and you'll get 12,000 hours of battery use on illumination setting 4, which is a little over a year. If you bump this to 5 or 6, which is actually pretty bright, you'll knock yourself down to a year, maybe a little bit less, which is plenty battery life considering how much of the reticle it illuminates. I'm going to be installing this on my 14.5. I made a few changes and I sold the LPVO that I did have on there. I ended up switching to the ACOG mostly because it's a lot more simple of an optic, but there are other good pros about this, being how it's so lightweight, and another one being that it's extremely durable. Now, you can get other LPVOs that are pretty durable, but this is probably the most durable optic of all time. The military's used these for probably about the last 20 years, and these are still a relevant and great option to go with, especially if you're not shooting long range very frequently. And with the BDC bullet drop compensator reticle inside, it has been shown to make your first chance hit probability increase. Using and getting proficient at LPVOs is a lot harder than some people think. You need a decent amount of learning and equipment to calculate your holds. You can plug in the velocity and some other numbers to get close to your holds, but then you would still have to go out and verify at all the different distances. To get a more precise measurement, you would need a chronograph, a Kestrel, and a rangefinder, which getting quality equipment like a Garmin and the Kestrel can get very expensive. And then even then, you would still need to test the LPVO and holds out to distance to make sure that that's exactly where you're hitting at. Then once you get to there, to be good at it, you have to frequently train long range shooting, which isn't very realistic for most people. It's just a lot more complex of a subject. Now, if you can go out and train long range frequently, and you can buy that equipment and make sure that you know your holds and get practice in and gain a decent amount of knowledge in the long range subject, an LPVO with an offset red dot is for sure the more ideal or optimal optic system. And if I had more time to devote into long range shooting, I would definitely prefer that optic system for myself. I don't think this is a superior optic setup, but for most or the average citizen or even the beginner, this is a great option that won't fail you, and you'll be able to get hits on targets out to range without doing a bunch of stuff, which is an important capability to have. Lucas from T-Rex Arms also has a video called Do It All Optic on YouTube, where he explains why this is such a great option and why it's still relevant and why it's a good option for the average citizen wanting to be able to engage out to 400 or 500 yards. So you can check out that video to get a different point of view. Delta 34, also another YouTube, has a ton of great content on the best ACOG, the best reticles, and he compares them, different ACOGs, different mounts, different reticles, what is the best and how things are affected. And he also shows a lot of good close-ups on the reticles, and he explains ACOGs in a lot of detail, which is very helpful if you want to get some more information on these as well. Based on the information I have gathered, this is the best ACOG you can buy for a few different reasons. I really like how this is battery powered instead of the tritium, because on the tritium models, not only can that tritium get damaged and break, but you also can't make very small adjustments on that because you're having to use tape. And I don't really like the idea of using tape on the tritium, even though it's been done for a very long amount of time, because so much sunlight shines in there and it gets really bright. So you're having to slap a piece of tape on there to either cover it all the way so there's no illumination from the tritium, or you're having to pull it back or set it a specific way so you're getting just the right amount of illumination from that tritium and the sunlight. There is an aftermarket company that makes a cover for that Delta 34 goes over, but it is not very durable and it did break in his video, so that's why I didn't really like that. On the TA02, not only do you have 6 brightness settings that you can easily change, but you have an off position in between them, which is very nice. So if I don't want the illumination on at that time, I can keep it in the off and then I can just switch it right to 3, which is very handy. I like being able to control the brightness a lot easier just with the turn of the knob. Also, this being an etched reticle, I wouldn't even keep the illumination on all the time. I would be using just the black etched reticle at least 50% of the time. The only downside to this and why people like tritium is mainly in case you don't have a battery or the possibility of an EMP dropping and it destroying the electronic components inside. Dirty Civilian made a video about EMPs, so if an EMP did drop, it's not for sure if your optics would even be affected. Also here we have a lanyard on the battery cap, which is nice as well. Another small downside to right and left-handed shooters, because this battery compartment is in the way and the knob is in the way, which you don't have this stuff on your TA31 or your tritium models. If you're running an offset red dot to the right or to the left, these will get in the way a little bit. If you wanted that red dot tucked really close, if you were doing it on the left side, you'll have to poke it out, say to the 45-degree angle instead of the 35-degree angle like on the Arasaka offset red dot mount. You might not be able to tuck it into that 35-degree because of this brightness knob. With all of that to say, I definitely still think the pros outweigh the cons, and I like this TA02 version a lot better than the tritium. The second great improvement is, since that tritium is not here, the top mounted red dot portion is a lot farther forward, so you can get that RMR or red dot. I'm going to be mounting a T2 on top and on the side. You can get your RMR or whatever red dot you're mounting a lot farther away from your face. This is going to make it a lot easier for you to pick up since it's farther away from your face. And also, if you're running night vision, you're not hitting your tubes on that little red dot. It's a lot easier and better to run with night vision having that red dot forward, which was a big complaint on the tritium models, having that red dot all the way back. So being able to have this forward is a big pro, and I like that a lot. I will be doing a comparison video of the top mounted red dot versus the offset red dot for this specific model. I am going to be using the Aimpoint T2 on this. I chose that specifically because it is actually a rifle 2 MOA red dot. So the red dot is slightly smaller than your RMR or your pistol red dots, which are usually 3.25 MOA or 3.5 MOA. Also on the T2, I'm able to change out the battery without taking off the red dot like you have to do on the RMR. And I like how it's a closed emitter because this will be on a fighting rifle, so it's going to be outside in the elements. You can use different pistol optics like the Aimpoint Acro P2. That's a little bit less costly, or the Trijicon RCR, the Trijicon RMR HD. There's a few other close competitors, one being the Elcan Spectre, which is more of a Canadian optic, which you can actually flip a switch to get you from 1 magnification to 4 magnification. Even with that feature, it still has a top mounting feature to where you can mount a top mounted red dot, so you don't have to take your hand off and flip the switch. It is $2,000, which is $900 more than this, which you're getting into the LPVO price, and that is pretty expensive for a 1 to 4 magnification optic. It's also 23 ounces, so it's 9 ounces heavier than this, decently more heavy, but it does have better eye relief. The Elcan isn't a super common optic, and you're in the same position to where you still have to find out what those BDC holds are. So you're gonna have to get that equipment and find out with your specific ammo, with your specific barrel length, what exactly those BDC holds are for your specific setup. For me, I didn't want to take a chance on that, buy it, have to figure stuff out, and then it possibly not work out for me. And it's just a much longer learning curve like it is with the LPVO. A second great option that I almost went with, which is an LPVO with a BDC reticle as well, is the Sig Sauer Tango 6T. It is a 1:6 variable zoom LPVO. The one I would have gotten has the DWLR6 reticle, and that is because the BDC lines up close with 55 grain 5.56 rifles. That reticle BDC is actually based off a 308. I believe it was a 16-inch barrel, but the ballistics of the 308 and the 55 grain are pretty close. But again, with that optic, you're still going to have to do your own testing. The thing I liked about that is that it is variable zoom. It does take you out to 6 magnification, which would be great for a 14.5. It also does have wind holds, which is very nice, and this does not have wind holds, but it does come at the price of $1,700, and that is without a mount. So you're probably looking closer to $2,000 without tax, and that's with a good mount. That BDC from that was also tested on a 1.5-inch mount. The DWLR6 reticle is slightly different. It still has the wind holds, but it is tested out of a 16-inch 5.56 rifle with 62 grain. So it depends what ammo you're going to be shooting most. Mainly I shoot 55 grain. That's why I was leaning towards the DWLR6. I didn't want to go with all the uncertainty, have to do a ton of testing. I had a lot of conversation with SIG about that specific LPVO, and they were all over the place. Different customer service people telling me different things. They were telling me that the DWLR6 didn't line up with 55 grain, and they didn't have a lot of information about the bullet velocity. They didn't have the mount height. So I thought it was pretty ridiculous. I was asking a lot of questions to SIG that they couldn't give me answers for. I was waiting for a few weeks to get answers. Still didn't get some for sure answers from them on questions I had. Recently, I've been disappointed with SIG with a lot of their products just having problems, but that is a pretty good option. And if you're shooting 55 grain, the BDC reticle will line up pretty close. It's just not going to be exactly where you want it. T-Rex Arms, on their website, when you go to the ACOG TA02 and you scroll down a little bit, they already tell you exactly what your holds are going to be for whatever barrel you have and for whatever ammo type you're shooting. So you have the 55 grain, 62, 77. These are all 14.5. They have 16-inch, and then they have different ones on there. So for what I'm shooting right here, as you can see, once you start switching ammos, even to the 62 or the 77, your holds are a lot different than what those hash marks are. So this is why it's important that when you're adding in different variables, barrel length, grain weight, optic height, so whatever mount you're doing, switching mounts. That's why I didn't want to switch this mount, because then it is going to mess with my BDC. Maybe not so far up close, but when you start getting further out to range, it's going to start messing with your BDC a lot more, which Delta 34 talks about in one of his ACOG mount videos about putting a riser on the ACOG. And for ACOG, if you have a red dot that you're going to be using up close, this is all going to be for long range shooting. And to make it any higher than a 1.5, I don't see the use in that, because most of the stuff you're either going to be doing leaning on a barricade, prone, or maybe in a standing position. So to raise this up to make it more comfortable to shoot doesn't really make a lot of sense in my opinion when this is a longer range optic. I will say a great mount that ScalarWorks just put out, which I really like, and if I switch the mount, I would go to that. It is a 1.75 inch ACOG mount, but it raises it up. The optic mount is actually smaller, so you can push it a lot farther back on your receiver and make the eye relief a lot easier and a lot better for you. It is called the Leap 14, and ScalarWorks makes great products. So when you do change a mount, like the cram spacers, to be able to push it up and push it back, you are going to be messing with your BDC a little bit. This is a plenty fine optic mount, and I'm not gonna mind using it at all. This is just another great resource from Lucas and T-Rex Arms and their team. Now I will explain why I went with the red crosshair instead of the Chevron. I've always been a bigger fan of red. It's a lot easier to see when you're aiming at grass or trees or shrubs or anything like that. Delta 34 also shows great comparison between the colors of the ACOGs, green and red, and why green is not that great of an option, especially when you're in nature or you're shooting long range distance. That green washes out very easily, and I like the red a lot better. The downside with the Chevron reticle is that when you're illuminating this, which he shows in the video, this can actually flare up and get blurry and actually wash out your 200 meter hold. Delta 34 shows that on camera and shows why for long range shooting, the crosshair is a lot better. Also, your 200 and your 300 degree hold are a lot more refined of an aiming point and a lot easier to be precise and accurate with. If you come over here to the Chevron, your 200 hold is right in this triangle right here, and that is a lot harder to be precise with. Also, this 300 right here, there is no cross going through it, so it is also a lot harder to be precise with as well. With all of these, because they're a cross, it's very easy to be accurate with. Like on all your other LPVOs, most of them have crosses because it's a very refined and easy center aiming point to make shots with. Another thing on the Chevron is that it doesn't have your 200 range estimation. With these ACOGs, which is a cool feature, is that you can use them to range estimate, and you line up the shoulders of the target, and the shoulders go from this point to this point. This will equal 100 meters. And then you can do the same down at the 300 meters, 400, 500, 600. And you can do it as well on the Chevron, but it would be 300, 400, 500, 600. For me, there's a lot of cons on the Chevron, even though it's such a widely used reticle. And I think that it was used so much because most of the time people were not running a second aiming device. Because this is a little bit more of a refined point, you can use that a lot easier for close aiming shots. And this almost looks like a red dot. And if you pull the trigger, you're pretty much going to hit, because this is similar enough to where you could use it like a red dot, especially with that nice point. And a lot of people do like that nice point because it just comes to a peak. People like to use it for headshots, stuff like that. It's definitely not a bad option, but for what I'm going to use it for, because I have a second aiming device, the red dot, this crosshair is going to be a lot better for long range, precise shots because of the 2 and the 300 mark. That being said, even if you're using this reticle for close quarters, you can simply put the cross just on their chest or on their head or whatever, and you will still be able to get fast shots. On T-Rex's website, if you scroll down on the TA2 as well, you will be able to see a comparison of them placed on a target. I do like how this optic isn't very busy. It doesn't have these big black bars right here that are pretty unneeded in my opinion. I wish they would have just stopped the cross here, 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 and then right up there at that 0.4. That would have been a lot better, so this optic wasn't so busy and that you could see more of what you're looking at, and this wasn't taking anything up. That is a big pro that I do like about the Chevron, because it is a very slick reticle and it doesn't have a lot going on around here, just has what you need. That being said, I still would recommend this if you plan on having a second aiming solution as far as a red dot. But if you're only going to run an ACOG, that's why the Chevron was so common. Now for the BDC holds, because these are using a Chevron, you can simply take the MOA measurements that you have here on the paper, and then you can just apply them right onto the crosshair. So if you look here at the 200 yards, it is 1.5 MOA. On the crosshair, from the top of this bar to the center of the 200 is 1.7 MOA. So your hold is pretty much going to be directly on the center of that 200, just a little bit above. We go to the 300 yards, which is 4.1 MOA. From the bottom of the center bar to the center of the 300 line, it is 4.6. So it's just going to be slightly above the 300 bar. For the 400 yard holds, 7.5 MOA. Bottom of the bar to the middle of the 400 is 8.3. So that's going to be a little bit more over the 400 hold, just slightly above it. For the 500, 11.9. From the bottom is 13. So that is going to be just right above it. Again, for the 600 yards, it is 17.6 MOA. This is 18.9. So that's going to be right about there. That's how you're able to apply these holds on the chart that T-Rex Arms gave. And for these holds, because they're in yards, you're going to have to zero at 100 yards with your ACOG instead of the 100 meter that it tells you to do in the manual. So if you're using these holds, you want to make sure that you're zeroing at 100 yards. With all of that to say, and all the other videos you can check out, this is definitely a great and still relevant option. It's extremely durable and reliable, which is the most important part of an optic. It has to be durable and reliable. If it breaks and you can't aim and you can't hit your shots, your optic is useless. Now we will get into the installation, but first, before I do that, because I'm not going to be using these top screws, you can either tighten these down or you can add some Loctite to them to make sure that they stay in, which is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to loosen them. I don't want them flying out. I don't want any dirt getting in there and my threads getting messed up or anything like that. So I'm going to add a small bit of Loctite just to make sure that those keep in there and those don't shoot out on me. Wipe some of that off. I can use on the other screw. This is Vibrotite 122. This is my favorite Loctite. I think it's the best. It is oil resistant. I'm just going to turn those in there. It doesn't have to be super hard. Just going to screw them in. Real easy. Just like that. Before you install your batteries, always make sure that your optic or whatever you're installing is off. Just take a little flathead. Can spin this out. It has that red gasket on there, so water's not going to get in. That's great. It tells you exactly how to input the battery. So we're going to go positive end first, just like that. Take that cap, screw it back on. There's going to be a little tension on it because of the spring in there. Going to tighten this till it stops and nothing is showing. You can see that it's working, and then I'll just go to the off position. Now it's off. Take your AR, take your mag out if you have one in there. You're gonna push the 2 takedown pins out. Once your 2 takedown pins are pulled out all the way on the right side, then you can take your upper off. You don't have to take the upper off, it's just a little easier, and I can set it flat like it says in the manual. I'm just gonna unscrew these all the way till it's not moving anymore, and you'll push that over. But before I do that, I'm gonna add just a drop of Loctite on there, just on those threads right there. Small drop and another small drop here. Then you're gonna find the position that you want on it. I am not gonna run backup iron sights with this thing. This is literally the closest you can get to a indestructible optic. This is bomb proof. This is extremely durable, extremely reliable. I'm not gonna prioritize a third aiming solution and make the eye relief even harder. I would not recommend running iron sights with this so you can get that proper eye relief, and there's no need. The way you can get the best eye relief is be able to mount it all the way back. And what a lot of guys do when they complain about the eye relief, which I understand it isn't great, but they throw iron sights right behind their Trijicon ACOG, and then they can't get really good eye relief, and they're putting their nose to the charging handle and all that stuff. If you're not sure where you want the ACOG or where the eye relief needs to be, put it back on your lower receiver, find out where you want your stock at, snug down the screws so your optic doesn't move, and then you can look through it, see if you have the right eye relief. For your stock position, do you need to move your stock position a little forward? How is it in prone? How is it crouching? All those types of things. So for the best position and for me, so I can get that proper eye relief, it's going to go on the farthest Picatinny slot back. I'm going to push it towards the right side, so it is towards the thumb screws, and then you're going to push it forward. Anytime you're mounting something on Picatinny, especially an optic, you want to make sure it's pushed forward toward the end of the barrel so that your optic isn't moving with recoil and that your zero is staying true and not getting messed up. So I have it pushed all the way to the right, and I'm going to push it forward. Then I'm going to start tightening these screws down. Once you get these finger tight to where you can't move them anymore, then you're going to take a coin or a flathead screwdriver, and you're going to take it from where it is now, and you're going to turn it a quarter turn. So quarter turn is going to be right about there, and for quarter turn here, it's going to be right about here. So I'm turning those a quarter. So I had them tightened down as much as I can with my hand. I turned them clockwise another quarter turn. And what I can do now is I can witness mark this. You can use a silver Sharpie or a paint marker. I'm gonna witness mark them on the inside on the left, so I'll be able to see them. Number one, it'll let me know if my mounting screws are getting loose. And number two, if I have to take this off and I have to remount it for any reason, I can know exactly where to torque them back down to again. There we have my witness marks. I marked on the mount, and then I marked on the thumb screw at the same spot on both sides. Back in. That is how it looks afterwards. I usually run the stock back about 3. This is a longer buffer tube. This allows me to get the best sight picture possible and best eye relief possible. If you want to see more videos like this, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching.